Hello everyone. This is the presentation on my assessment of the Behavior Rating Inventory of Executive Function, the second edition, or the brief. The authors of the brief 2 are Gerard Gioia, Peter Isquith, Stephen Guy, and Lauren Kenworthy. And the original brief was published in 2000, and the brief 2 was published in 2013. So now we'll just go over the parts of the CAN child that apply to this assessment. So some of the body functions that apply are global mental functions such as consciousness, orientation, global psychosocial, intellectual, energy and drive, and temperament and personality. Some specific mental functions include attention, memory, thought, mental functions of language, higher level cognitive and experience of self and time. And then there's also psychomotor and calculation and perceptual, as well as mental function of sequencing complex measurements. So learning and applying knowledge, for the purposeful sensory, there's watching other purposeful sensory experiences and listening. For basic learning, there's copying and acquiring skills. And then for applying knowledge, there's focusing attention, thinking, solving problems, and making decisions. And the picture on the right is an example of what the forms look like, just explaining the ordinal scale. So for activities and participation, there's communication, such as receiving communication and conversation and use of communication devices and techniques. Mobility for changing and maintaining body position. Also interactions, like general interactions that are interpersonal, basic, and complex. And then education for school and socializing. And on the right is an example of the parent form, some of the questions that they include. So some environmental factors, products, and technologies and attitudes. The brief includes communication and education, as well as immediate family and people of authority that could be included into the assessment. So some of the nitty-gritty details of the brief: it assesses multiple attributes. It will describe and discriminate between different problem areas. It can predict whether or not a child or adolescent is potentially or clinically elevated for further assessment, and evaluates if a child or adolescent is at risk for executive dysfunction. It can assess the client, caregiver, parent, and service provider, such as teacher. Those are the forms it provides. It's used for ages 5 to 18 with a self-report that's considered as adolescent 11 to 18, and it's for the home and education setting. And then on the right is an example of a parent form. The darkest green shows clinically elevated, showing that someone should definitely go in and be further assessed for executive dysfunction, and that's a score above 70, and between 65 and 70 it is potentially elevated. The clinical utility of the brief, it was really easy for me to figure out and apply to my family. It's clear, comprehensive, concise, and available. It's a self-completed questionnaire for the parent form, self-report form, and teacher form. It takes about 10 minutes for the full assessment, and 5 for the screening form, and 15 to score. So the scale construction of the brief, the items are explicitly weighted, and it's on an ordinal 3-point scale. All 3 forms have the choice of never, sometimes, or often. The parent form and teacher form, they have 63 questions, and the self-report form only has 55. So the standardization of the brief, the manual is rated as adequate, and again, it is normed for 5 to 18 years, and adolescents are considered 11 to 18 years. And here's an example of the self-report form portion of interpreting the scores. And you can see as well on this one that my sister, her T-scores for cognitive regulation are in the clinically elevated area. The reliability and validity for the brief, rated excellent. The type of reliability used for all 3 forms was test-retest, and they all rated above 0.8, so with a rating excellent. And for validity, for content, rigor, construct, and concurrent criterion validity, they all rated excellent. So, the overall utility of the Brief second edition is that it's an excellent tool to use. It has adequate to excellent clinical utility, it's easily available, and it has excellent reliability and validity. And partinc.com states that it's an enhanced rating scale of executive function that continues to be as efficient, comprehensive, and consistent with current models of executive function as its predecessor, but now includes a quick screener and enhanced features. So finally, my experience using the Brief second edition, it was great. I found it really easy to use and also easy to interpret. My sister and my mom also enjoyed doing it, especially because there were certain questions that kind of seemed to scream out at them in relation to the way my sister functions. And so that was kind of fun for them to just have something that was very easily relatable and able to understand. And I would definitely suggest anyone working with children that could possibly be suffering from executive dysfunction to use this tool.